Hello, welcome to Barry's Book Reviews. This is episode number 19, and today I'm reviewing a graphic novel called Moms by Yeong-shin Ma. Moms has been back in the news this week because it won a Harvey Award for Best International Book. The Harvey Awards are given for excellence in comic books, and they were announced last week, and it was great to see Moms win in the Best International Book category. And it's a very deserving win as well. It's a fantastic book. It's translated by Janet Hong, and I'll talk a bit more about Janet Hong in a second. But Moms is the latest example of this trend that there's been over the last few years for Korean graphic novels and Korean graphic novel memoirs. And I think the trend started with the publication of Uncomfortably Happily by Hong Yeon-sik. And fantastic book about a young married couple that moved to the countryside. I actually reviewed this already on the channel, so you can go and watch that video. But this was the first of these sort of Korean graphic novel memoirs that got published, and I think it was very successful and very acclaimed. And since then, there's been a growing number of these graphic novels published. So Hong followed that up with Omma's Table. And we had two books from Anko. Anko did 19, and a book called Bad Friends. They're both fantastic books as well. I'm a huge fan of Anko. And then the book that won the Harvey Award for Best International Book last year was Grass by Gumsuk Gendry Kim. Also a fantastic book, just a devastating true story. I'll try and review that sometime soon as well. And Moms is the latest example of this trend for these Korean graphic novels, graphic novel memoirs getting published, and nearly all of them have been translated by Janet Hong. Janet Hong is an academic and translator who I think is based in Canada. She translated all of these apart from Uncomfortably Happy. Uncomfortably Happy was translated by Helen Cho. But Janet Hong's done a fantastic job getting these translations into publication, getting these books out into print. And all these books are also published by a Canadian graphic novel publishing company called drawnandquarterly. You can see their little logo on the side of all the books here. And I think we really have to celebrate and give credit to both Drawn and Quarterly and to Janet Hong for getting all of these fantastic books into English. And long may this collaboration continue. Hopefully we'll see more of these graphic novels in future. But anyway, let's get back to today's book. So this is Moms by Ma Yeong-shin, or Yeong-shin Ma, as they've got it here. And Moms is a graphic novel about four middle-aged Korean women, sort of mostly what we, I guess, call working class women. They're in their mid-50s. And it details pretty much every aspect of their life that you could possibly want to hear about. So we hear about their work, the different types of jobs that they do, their family life, their children. We hear about their love life, their relationships. So all of life's rich tapestry, all of life's rich pageant. Really, we see all aspects of their work. And it actually has an interesting backstory of how this book came to be written and came to be published in the first place. So Yeong-shin Ma is not a middle-aged Korean woman. He's a younger man. I guess maybe he's almost a middle-aged guy now. But he has an interesting bio. He says that he started writing comic books or webtoons because he lost a lot of money on a Bitcoin several years ago, maybe about a decade ago. And after losing this money, he started writing his webtoons, and since then he's published nine books so far in Korean. Moms being his first to be translated into English. So I guess his loss of money to Bitcoin is our gain. So how did Yeong-shin Ma become inspired to write this book about four middle-aged Korean women? What led him to this topic? Why does he choose this topic? And there's a really interesting author's note at the end of Moms, and he talks about his inspiration. And he says that this book is based on his mother's notebooks. So it's really his mother's story and her friends. And he says that when he left home for the first time, and he was living on his own, he realized how difficult it was looking after a home and looking after yourself, cooking for yourself and cleaning for yourself and doing all of these things that you have to do when you're a functioning adult trying to live an independent life. And he says that he was filled with shame and regret for his lack of appreciation for his mum's difficult life. You know, she'd cooked and fed and kept him clothed and cleaned the house that he lived in, and all of these things that she'd done for him that he'd not appreciated. He'd not appreciated as a child and as a young man. And I think that's a very common feeling. It's certainly something that I can empathize with. I'm filled with shame and regret for my own mother's hard life and all the things that she did to me did for me when I was a kid and in high school and so on. So I really understood what he was saying when he said that he was filled with regret because he hadn't appreciated his mum's life. So this book is really a tribute and a testament to her life and hard work. But this feeling of shame that he had and regret, it inspired him to write a comic book with his mum as the central character, with his mom as the central character. So he gave her some notebooks, he gave her some blank notebooks, and asked her just to fill the notebooks with the details of her life, just what was happening in her life. And much to his surprise, she filled several of these notebooks, and she was very candid. She told him all about the personal details of her life and things that he hadn't expected to hear, and even some maybe a little explicit details. So he was surprised to read these sort of, intimate details of his mother and her mother's friend's life. And so this book, Moms, it's not just his mother's story, it's his mother's story and her friends, three of her close friends. And I think it's been sort of lightly fictionalized. So it isn't a sort of straight, like a biography. It's been a little fictionalized and tweaked, I think. So it doesn't entirely or completely reflect their lives, but I'm not sure how much it's been changed. So anyway, what happens in the life of these four women? So they're all mothers. Some of them are still married. Some of them are divorced. Some of the marriages are happier than others. They're all, I think, roughly in their mid-50s. And they're all searching for meaning in their lives. They're looking for more than what they currently have in their lives. They feel like perhaps they've been neglected by the world in general, by their husbands, by their employers, by their children. They've been ignored, and they're really sort of wondering what else does life have for them. The focus is mainly on Soyeon. She's at a crossroads in her life, or she's at reached a milestone in her life journey. She's divorced, she's in her 50s, her children are both adults and should be fending for themselves, although perhaps they're not doing a good job of that. She's had an unhappy marriage, she's in a job that she doesn't like, and really she's asking, what else does life have to offer her? What more can she get from life? She wants more. She has this sort of deep desire to get more out of life. But she's disappointed with the various aspects of her life. So she's very disappointed with her children. Her children are adults, but they're not maybe living the best lives that they could. Her daughter is asking her for money to start a business, which doesn't seem like it's a very sensible venture. Her son is 30 years old and he still lives at home, and he spends all day in his room playing computer games. And they don't seem to appreciate her, and they don't seem to think about her. They're self-absorbed, they're not interested in Soyeon's life, and she's still looking after them in many ways when really they should be beginning to look after themselves. We also see her work life. She works for a cleaning company, and she's overworked, she's underappreciated, she's undervalued, she's underpaid, and we see the way that she's mistreated by her employer, but we also see the camaraderie between the co-workers who work for this cleaning company, and we see the sort of interpersonal tensions that come up between them and the different reasons that they have, they have problems with each other. And then she's also dating a man who isn't perhaps a very good man. He's not faithful, he drinks too much, and maybe she doesn't have many dating options. We see this sort of the dating life of women at her age and her social class, and trying to find a good man seems like an uphill struggle. So she settles for this rather obnoxious and unpleasant guy who doesn't treat her right. And the story is really about her search for some kind of fulfillment, right? She has this very human desire to have more than what we're offered by the world around us, to get more from life than what we're given. And through all these difficulties, through her sort of disappointing children and the unhappy marriage, we just see this desire for life. She wants to live a full life. She wants rich experiences. She wants happiness and joy. She wants friendships and fulfilling relationships. And we sort of see her trying to pursue these things in her life and how difficult it can be. It might sound a little grim. I think my description may have made it sound a little grimmer than it is. It is a little grim in places, but what comes through most is just this overwhelming passion for life. This refusal to accept what wider society says, this is what you're worth. This sort of strong urge to say no, that isn't what I'm worth, and I deserve more. Deserve more from life. It's also very, very funny, often very amusing. I particularly enjoyed the coarse language that Soyeon and her friends use to speak to each other. Very amusing. There's lots of crazy situations. So it starts with Soyeon fighting one of her friends in the street. They have this argument, and it starts with them, calling each other out, and they have this fight in the middle of the street. There's lots of social commentary, about her working life and about how women are treated and the role of women in Korean society. Very pertinent observations. It's very rich in that aspect too. There's passion. There's lust. It's moving. It's sad, and it's very touching. It really is a fantastic book. It was one of my favorite books of last year. And also, I'd just like to say something about the comic medium for telling this story. So there's still lots of people who don't read comic books or graphic novels, and that's a real shame, because if you're not reading comic books and graphic novels, you're missing out on fantastic reading experiences of books like Moms and Uncomfortably Happily and Grass and all these other fantastic books. So reading a comic book, it isn't the same as reading a novel. There's the different shades to the experience. The way we process comic books, comic book storytelling is different from how we process novels or short stories. Not better or worse, it's just a different reading experience, but a very rich experience that's really worth having. And in the case of Moms, the humor, the tenderness, the anger, it all comes through these very, profoundly simple but captivating black and white drawings. There's something about the simplicity of the drawings that really captures Soyeon's experiences when she feels sort of small and afraid, or she's having some more exuberant experience. The sort of the black and white drawings, they really capture just the sort of the human experiences that she's having, the emotions that she's feeling. I really thought it was a very rich reading experience. It was one of the best books of last year. I had a great time reading it. It's a blast of a book to read, and I highly recommend you pick it up. Today's book is Moms by Yeong-shin Ma, translated by Janet Hong, and published by Drawn and Quarterly. So check it out, and thanks for listening.